እግዚአብሔር አምላካችን የምንጸልየውን ጸሎት ይቀበልልን። በስመ አብ ወወልድ ወመንፈስ ቅዱስ አሐዱ አምላክ አሜን። አቤቱ የሰራዊት ጌታ እግዚአብሔር አምላካችን ሆይ እንለምንሃለን፣ እንማጸንሃለን። በቸርነትህ በምሕረትህ ጎብኘን፣ አበሳ ኃጢአታችንን ይቅር በለን። ከመከራ ሥጋ ከመከራ ነፍስ ከፈተና ከችግር ሰውረን። የደዌ ዳኛ አልጋ ቁራኛ ሆነው የታመሙትን ፈውስልን። አስቡን የሚሉን አሉና በጸሎታቸው አትርሱን ብለው የሚማጸኑትን ሁሉ በያሉበት በምህረት እጆች ዳብስልን። አምላካችን ሆይ ኢዮብን እንደፈወስክ፣ አልዓዛርን ከሙታን እንዳነሳ፣ መጻጉዕን እንደዳሰስክ ሕዝባችንን ወገናችንን ከበሽታ ከደዌ ፈውስልን። ሰላም አሳድረን፣ ለመምህራችን ጥበቡን ለኛም ዕውቀት እንድትሰጠን ፈቃድ ይሁን። አቡነ ዘበሰማያት ይትቀደስ ስምከ ትምጻእ መንግሥትከ ወይኩን ፈቃድከ በከመ በሰማይ ከማሁ በምድር ሲሳየነ ዘለለዕለትነ ሀበነ ዮም ህድግ ለነ አበሳነ ወጌጋየነ ከመ ንሕድግ ለዘአበሰ ለነ ኢታብአነ እግዚኦ ውስተ መንሱት አላ አድኅነነ ወባልሐነ እምኩሉ እኩይ እስመ ዚአከ ይእቲ መንግሥት ኃይል ወስብሐት ለዓለመ ዓለም። በሰላመ ቅዱስ ገብርኤል መልአክ ወእግዝእትየ ማርያም ሰላም ለኪ ድንግል በህሊናኪ ወድንግል በሥጋኪ እም እግዚአብሔር ጸባኦት ሰላም ለኪ ወርክት አንቲ እምአንስቶ ወፍሬ ከርሥኪ ተፈሥሒ ፍሥሕት ወምልዕተ ጸጋ እግዚአብሔር ምስሌኪ ጸልዪ ወተአድኅ ምሕረታ በፍቁር ወልድኪ ኢየሱስ ክርስቶስ ከመ ይስረይ ለነ ኃጣውኢነ ኃይለ እግዚአብሔር አብ ኦ እግዚእ ኢየሱስ ክርስቶስ ስረይ ኃጢአቴ ወኃጢአተ ኩሉ ሕዝብከ ማይሰራ ኃጢአት እግዚአብሔር ይፍታ። እግዚአብሔር ይባርክ።
ይፍቱን ይባርኩን አባታችን። መልካም፣ እንዴት ሰነበታችሁ? በድጋሚ ሁላችሁንም
እግዚአብሔር ይመስገን።
አሜን አሜን። እግዚአብሔር እንኳን በሰላም አገናኘን። እንጀምራለን። እሺ may I begin, ቀሲስ? Okay. may I?
የሆነ ድምጽ ይረብሻል።
ሁሉንም ሚውት አደርገዋለሁ፣ ችግር የለውም። እዚህ
እሺ ልጀምር አይደል?
አዎ ይጀምሩ። ሁሉንም ሚውት አደርጋለሁ እኔ።
Okay. So can you see me? My screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, once again, good evening, and we are really thankful for God for keeping us safe to meet for this class. So may He give us the wisdom so that we can understand the history of the church. Thank you very much. So today will be the first lesson, as we designed the first chapter of the lesson. It's about we're going to discuss about two major points, but we begin with one introductory and very common topic. That's about that. The whole section is chapter 1. It's about to discuss about pre-Christianity and Christianity in Ethiopia. But before that, we discuss about briefly what Ethiopia, Judaism in Ethiopia, Christianity in Ethiopia. So basically 3 parts. To begin with, from the pre-Christian Ethiopia, I think it's good to see how Ethiopia is represented in the Bible as well. One of the earliest countries in the globe and with ancient civilizations is Ethiopia. So as we all know, Ethiopia is one of the earliest countries of the world. Modern archaeological findings prove that Ethiopia is the cradle of mankind. Lucy or Australopithecus afarensis, which is over 3.2 million years old, is found or discovered in Ethiopia. So this makes Ethiopia unique, and it has a unique place in the eyes of even the modern archaeological findings are concerned. The name of Ethiopia is mentioned more than 40 times in the Bible, as you all know, more than 40 times. To mention just 2 pointers or 2 incidents one from the Old Testament and one from the New Testament. I will mention the Old Testament, a very famous one, and as the first book of the Old Testament, Genesis, begins with the name of Ethiopia, mentioning Ethiopian name. As you all know, Genesis chapter 2, verse 13 is about on the mention of the, the river Gihon. The name of the second river is Gihon. The same is that it compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. So it mentions that Ethiopia is mentioned in relation with Gihon River. So from Genesis. When you come to the New Testament, of course, by the way, from the Old Testament, there are various or very numerous quotations of the Bible are mentioned. We all know from the Haggai, from Zephaniah, from Ezekiel, and many Jeremiah, and the famous quotations of Psalms are really, really very interesting. As you all know, Ethiopia is a very, very foundational verse from Psalms of David. But I just mentioned one example, that is from Genesis chapter 2. But I didn't forget everything, but we can't mention everything here in this. But just to mention one important and equally important incident from the New Testament is the incident of Acts of the Apostles, chapter 8, verse 26. We'll see it in detail in a minute. So this is a very, very, very important account of the Bible, mentions the name of Ethiopia and the name of the Ethiopian eunuch as baptized. So Ethiopia is mentioned in the first historical book of Christianity in the New Testament, and the name of Ethiopia is also mentioned in the first book of the Old Testament, Genesis. So it is good to see how Ethiopia is mentioned in the Bible. Don't forget that the name of Ethiopia is mentioned more than 40 times. So that's very important. So archaeological findings show that the worship of the serpent was widespread at an early stage of Ethiopian history. So this is, this must be known. It didn't affect or it didn't challenge that Ethiopians are, people believing in God. Well, even today, even during the after 2000 years after Christ or after Christianity was just practiced, there are people who are still in pagan religion. There are people who are just outside of the New Testament, outside of the Christian faith, outside of the church faith. So it's no wonder that it's very common in every society. There are faithless people, there are faithful people. So majority is monotheistic one, which we know that. But we must know that as a history of Ethiopian church students, we must know that, or don't be ignorant that, the worship of serpent, right? Worship of serpent was widespread at the early age of Ethiopia. So this must be known. On the other hand, Ethiopian tradition strongly believes that Judaism was practiced in Ethiopia before the introduction of Christianity. So this is a very famous, and we have lots of reasons for this. And this reason, this was happened after the visit of the Queen of Sheba to King Solomon. So this is very, very famous, and which this fact leads us to the next subsection. That's called Judaism in Ethiopia. Judaism in Ethiopia. So we all know that Christianity was grounded on the fertile land of Judaism, or Judaic practices in Ethiopia. So that's really very important. Judaism, according to Ethiopian tradition, has more than 1,000 years before the time of Christ in Ethiopia. So that Judaism had an incident of the Queen of Sheba, as we all know. So the Queen of Sheba, which is the Queen of Ethiopia, visited King Solomon and came back after getting blessings, many blessings, as it's written in the 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 1 through 9, and also in the 1 Chronicles chapter 9. On her return, Queen of Sheba, she had born him a son, whom she named Menelik. So Menelik first. So Menelik first was just as a result of the visit of Queen Sheba from King Solomon of Israel. So this story is elaborated and discussed in the book of Kibra Negest, Glory of Kings. As you all know, the visit of Queen Sheba to King Solomon is written in the Bible, but we don't have detailed accounts in the Bible. So having these incidents from 1 Kings chapter 10 and 1 Chronicles. So the Ethiopian source named Kibra Negest, which means the glory of kings, or the glory of king, the glory of kings, or the honor of kings. Kibra Negest, which is a written very rich material, very important material. It is an account, a detailed account of the visit of Queen Sheba to King Solomon and the birth of King Solomon and the coming of the Tagot Zion, or the coming of the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia. According to Kibra Negest, when Menelik first grew up, he visited his father, King Solomon, in Jerusalem. He came back, he means Menelik first, he came back home accompanied by many Israelites, the sons of Levites, and bringing with him the Ark of the Covenant, known as Tagot Zion, to Ethiopia. Kibra Negest has 117 chapters whose focus, I apologize for this. So the spelling must be corrected. So focuses, right? Oh, yeah, here we go. Yes. Can you see my screen? Yes, thank you very much. So Kibra Negest, as you all know, this is the Kibra Negest, one of the Kibra Negest, the very famous editions of Kibra Negest. By the way, this Kibra Negest book is very important. I think less known by with the current generation, we Ethiopians, but they're very famous by Europeans and by Western scholars. So Kibra Negest, as you can see, it's written and translated into Amharic very recently. In 1994, in Ethiopian calendar, was translated from Ge'ez into Amharic in Addis Ababa University by Dr. Sergio Gelau. But it's just recently, we can say, was some 15, 20 years back, from Ge'ez into Amharic. Unfortunately, Amharic is really written in worst letters or alphabet, because the Ge'ez letters are just intentionally eliminated from letters. So anyway, as you can see, A is in a fourth order Amharic. So it's really sad to say, but the Ge'ez part is really good. Why it is written in this way? Because the publisher, I discussed with the translator named Sergio Galau. It is not his intention, but I think the office forced him to use one sa instead of two, one ha instead of three ha, one sa instead of two sas, and to use one a, that's alpha a, instead of two as. So They keep the tradition of Ge'ez as it is, but in the Amharic translation, they just confuse everything. Anyway, apart from this, it is, I think, a good translation from Ge'ez to Amharic of Kibra Negest. That's very important. When we come to the English and other languages, Kibra Negest is a very famous book which is written and translated by many Europeans. Like, as you can see here is the English translation of Kibra Negest into English by the very famous one, which is called Edward Wallis Budge, which is a British guy. He's a British scholar. And the German and his edition was translated by or edited by the German guy named Karl Besold. Karl Besold, it was published in 1905. German Ge'ez. This English one in 1922 or 1928. And also French by Gerard Collin, and in Italian and other languages. It's just translated since so many years ago. But in Amharic, translated into recently, as I said. Finally, what's Kibra Negest? Kibra Negest has 117 chapters whose focus are summarized into two. What are the focus of Kibra Negest? The first is the transfer of Ark of the Covenant from Jerusalem to Aksum. This is the first reason. And the second focus is making Ethiopian kingdom to the line of King David, Negus David, and Negus Solomon, or the Mu'anbasa through Minilik first. So these are the two central themes of Kibra Negest. So Kibra Negest book is really very important for two reasons. One, it discusses the detailed visit of Queen Sheba to King Solomon. Then it discusses very, very, very profoundly how Tabot Zion came to Ethiopia and resided in the Debre Makeda. That's really very important, and it is really nice. So that's Kibra Negest was a Bible-like text for Ethiopian kings until the time of Emperor Haile Selassie in 1974. And everything was just finished. But until Haile Selassie's time, every king of Ethiopia, every emperor should keep this Kibra Negest, and he must tell his lineage ማለት ምንድነው የዘር ሐረጉን must be related to King Solomon and David. ከዛ መቁጠር አለበት ካለበለዚያ he will be outside of the kingship. So that's very important. So that's why Kibra Negest was really very important stuff for Ethiopian Christianity and for Ethiopian kingdom, of course. Kibra Negest states that the Ark of the Covenant moved from Israel to Debre Makeda or Aksum by the will of God. ይሄ ሁሉ በእግዚአብሔር ፈቃድ ሆነ ይላል። ዝኒ ኮነ በፈቃድ እግዚአብሔር. By the will of God, thus Ethiopia become the new Zion. So having the Ark of the Covenant, the Tabot Zion, Ethiopia become the second Zion, or the new Zion. I have written one article, so you can read this article. I discussed all these traditions, that the cycles of Zion. Cycles ማለት ታቦተ ጽዮን የዞረችባቸው ቦታዎች. So I try to compare the first Jerusalem in Israel and the second Jerusalem, the resting place of Tabot Zion, Aksum. So I compared the first Jerusalem, the first cycle in Jerusalem, and the second cycle in the resting place, Aksum. Of course, there are also, based on the Kibra Negest, but there are also other resources which I discussed, about 4 other resources which mentions. So Kibra Negest was the base, so there are also other Ethiopian sources, and I discussed that, so you can freely access this. So I wrote it in academia.edu, so you can Google this on my name. So I published it in 2015. It's just an article, and it is it's a very, very important one. I think you can see. So This is the icon of how Tabote Zion came to Ethiopia, and these are the Levites, right? So this is really very important. It's from Aksum. Okay, the Ark of the Covenant is housed at Aksum and become the center of the monotheistic faith in Ethiopia. So guess what? So the coming of the Ark of the Covenant is really very important. So that was really very good, and Aksum became the center for monotheistic faith in Ethiopia. Aksum became the center for everything for Ethiopian civilization. As far as civilization is concerned, Aksum is center. As far as the Christian faith is concerned, of course, the Tabote Zion, or due to the coming of the Tabote Zion, Aksum has a really, really very significant role in Ethiopian Christianity and Ethiopian kingdom. So that's really very important. The first church building was built to the Ark of Zion, or the Ark of the Covenant, by Abraham Atzbaha, or Abraham and Atzbaha, or Izana and Saizana, about 330 AD, and consecrated by Abba Salama from Mencius. So this shows that the ark was in tent, በድንኳን ውስጥ ማለት ነው, for centuries before consecrating to the church. You know, clear? Is this clear? This must be clear, by the way. So guess what I mentioned here? Okay, I mentioned here Tabote Zion, after living after houses in tent for centuries and centuries, the first church, the first temple, was consecrated after the Ark of the Covenant, okay, in the 4th century, in 330, by Abraham Atzbaha, during the time of Abraham Atzbaha, by the time of Mencius. Unfortunately, that church was demolished by Yodit Gudit, so we don't have that remain. So after that, it was just reconstructed. Then finally, Grang came and he distracted the church of Aksum and other churches. Finally, by the grace of God, this church was consecrated in 17th century by Emperor Fasil. So this is the first and the oldest church of Aksum which we have. Okay, this one. So I recommend you to visit Aksum Church. So there are 3 churches, by the way, currently to be visited at Aksum. The first and the oldest one was, it's called the Old Aksum of Zion Church, built by Emperor Fasil. He reigned in 1632 through 1664, we all know. So this is the oldest church. And as you all know, this is a very, very famous cathedral, which was the new church constructed by Emperor Haile Selassie, His Majesty Haile Selassie first. Haile Selassie. እዚህ ውስጥ ሁሉ ወንዶችም ሴቶችም ይገባሉ። እዚህኛው ግን ወንዶች ብቻ ይገባሉ፣ ሴቶች አይገቡም። የፋሲል ቤተክርስቲያን ያሰራው። The Ark of the Covenant was formerly used or put or just rested in this cathedral, in this church, at the innermost. ቅድስተ ቅዱሳኑ 7 በሮች አሉት እና ውስጠኛው 7ኛው ክፍል ውስጥ ነበር የሚቀመጠው until this time. But Emperor Haile Selassie, when he built this church, his consort named Eteghe Menen, the wife of the Emperor Haile Selassie, Eteghe Menen, constructed እንደ ጽላት የታቦተ ጽዮንን መቀመጫዋን ቤተ መቅደሷን ለብቻ ይችኛዋን አሰሩ። when እንደ ጽላት ይባላል 1965. So this is, so finally now the Tabote Zion was moved from this, the oldest church, to this, still in the same compound. Okay, so now this become the only church. So a one man, this guy, I mean this father, the one who is yellow cassock, is the guardian of the Ark of the Covenant, which is called ጽላቱን ጠባቂ መነኩሴ አባት እሳቸው ብቻ ናቸው። ማንም ሰው nobody can visit, even the patriarch, even the bishop, even the ንቡረ እድ, no, except this man. So this is called እንደ ዕቃ ቤት ይባላሉ የጽላቱ ጠባቂ ይባላሉ ማለት ነው so this is all about Aksum and Aksumite church and the Ark of the Covenant for your important I think since I'm just giving this course I give a special emphasis for Tabutat Zion because of for this reason can you read this book can you see the title yes there is a special Ge'ez homily titled Dursana Zion homily to Zion glorifying the Ark of the Covenant to be read in front of the Ark of the Covenant on the 21st of the day of the month of Kanun, Borha Kanun, which is called Hadar 21st. Hadar 21st. So you can read, I have studied this homily and I discussed, I studied the text of the Dursana Zion, the homily of Zion, and I edited it and I translated it into English. I have just consulted more than 10 manuscripts. Yeah, it has philological and many things. So this is very important. So this is really good, and I recommend you to read this book. But unfortunately, this book is really very expensive. It's published in 2015. It's published in Brill in Netherlands, but you can find it in Amazon anyway if you just wish to see how the content. I think some contents are available from the Google. If you just Google by my name and you just give the first title, so I think one chapter you'll be allowed to be for reading purposes. I don't know what is this. Excuse me. So. I don't know. Okay. Thank you. So this is the book. So Tabutat Zion is there, right? There is a special text glorifying the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant የሚያመሰግን ድርሳነ ጽዮን ታቦተ ጽዮን ብቻ ሳይሆን ያቺ ጽዮን የተባለች እመቤታችን እንደሆነችና የእመቤታችን ምሳሌዋ እንደሆነች ሰማያዊቷ ጽዮን አክሱም ጽዮን ታቦተ ጽዮን እና ደግሞ የኢትዮጵያ መንግስት ራሱ የጽዮን መንግስት ይባላል እነዚህ ሁሉ ነው ዲስከስ የሚያደርገው ይሄ book my book so you can read so this is what I would like to share about that so after having this strong Judaic reasons there are 3 reasons to show that to tell us about how Judaism was practiced in Ethiopia. The first one is we have lots of Judaic temples in Ethiopia. This is the first reason. I will come back to that. The second one is there are black Jews or Beta Israelites or Falashas in Ethiopia. And the third one is Judaic elements in Ethiopian Christianity are still practiced. So due to these 3 reasons, Judaism was practiced in Ethiopia. Meaning, before Christianity, Ethiopia was in the Judaic preparation. Why I discuss all this? Because many writers deny that there was no Judaism in Ethiopia. There is no Tabutat Zion in Ethiopia. There is no Judaic reason in Ethiopia, and they deny everything. And Christianity began or phase come to Ethiopia in 4th century AD. But we have to argue this in a systematic way. So that's why we need to deal this. And I gave this before the Christian era. There was strong Judaic movement in Ethiopia. Not only movement, practice. Judaism was there. So thus, from the time of Menelik first, since 1000 BC, before Christ, the time of Christ, on Judaism was practiced in Ethiopia. So Judaism was the official religion, the state religion of Ethiopia since the time of Queen Sheba. This started the era of worshipping God according to the Mosaic law of the Old Testament, known as Judaism, which substitutes the existing faith as the law of conscience, which was called the Galipuna. እስከ ታቦተ ጽዮን መምጣትና እስከ ንግስት ሳባ ዘመን ድረስ ህገ ልቡና ነበር በኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ኦፍ ኮርስ ህገ ልቡና እያለም አንዳንድ በአዳም ልኮቶች ነበሩ ቢባል ምንም አይካድም ምንም አይገርምም ዛሬም ሊኖሩ ስለሚችሉ ማለት ነው but before that there were ህገ ልቡና in Ethiopia that's called law of conscience but after the Taboth Zion came to Ethiopia Judaism became officially registered so this is what Ethiopian tradition claims that Judaism faith was flourished to some parts of Ethiopia outside Aksum not only in Aksum Judaism was practiced but even outside Aksum Judaism was there where in some places like I just listed here Aksum Tana Tadbaba Mariam Mertule Mariam Berber Mariam all this as you all know all these are churches right now but now even though they carry the name of Tadbaba Mariam Mertule Mariam Berber Mariam Tana Kirkos and Aksum Sion before this Judaic preparation was there Judaic practice was there Judaic sacrifice were there it is already discovered in Tana Kirkos and others I recommend you to, so if you read my book I have just discussed many things there so for example if you just let me show you if you just read the books the book on the page 20 it tells about the claims of the position of the ark as we discussed by many European and other Western travelers but after that I discussed I think more than how many pages the tradition of Zion so more than yeah as of page 39 you can see how Ethiopian tradition was strong on the claim of this so how Tabot was you know traveled on different parts of Ethiopia so you can see this you can read that so I can show you some of the incidents like what okay I recommend you to read as of page 15 through yeah the through the second chapter of course the second even the beginning of the third chapter as well so there are lots of so for example in the Tana Kirkos monastery in the Tana Kirkos church there's a strong archaeological evidence which the famous you know the sign in the seal who is the author of this you know that Graham Hancock yeah so I discussed and I reviewed Graham Hancock and he has some fallacies as well so I discussed that but after Graham Hancock I strongly recommend another book which is an American guy his name is Robert Koenig so he was from Colorado so he published a book named or titled The Relic Quest so he discussed how Tana Kirkos was used as a center of Old Testament sacrifices okay so discussed many things so then also discussed of course the Aksum traditions but his book is really very good and I reviewed that on page as of page 29 on the so you can read on that okay the second point you know the first one are as we can see Judaic temples in Ethiopia the second point you know
before that I have a question Father
okay please
yeah is that like 1000 BC just rounding I remember it says like 982 BC
yeah surely exactly yeah to be specific you know 900 to 980 BC is the time of Emperor Solomon even Menelik's time was even after that but you know I said Chirka means just about roundabout so I think it's just good to mention that it's not exactly yes you are right it's not exactly but it's better to say on this area you got the point I said this 1000 years why because of to keep the tradition says 3,000 years of Ethiopian history. 1,000 before the time of Christianity, 2,000 years after Christianity. So altogether 3,000. Of course, if we become too specific, it must be even 980 years. It can be. Yeah. I mentioned, I think, some of the places in that way. Even. Okay, thank you, Cassis. May I continue? May I?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, good. The second reason to suggest, which is the strongest reason to Ethiopia, is one of the strongest evidences for the existence of Judaism in Ethiopia since the early times is the presence of the Jewish community in Ethiopia called Beta Israel or Falashas in the country. As you all know, the Falasha community used to perform archaic ancient rituals which contains a pre-Talmudic form of Judaism. This is very strong, by the way. It's very important. As you all know, the Bet Israel or the Falashas right now are they welcomed by the state of Israel, so they just reunited with the state. We all know this, right? I think even recently they were airlifted. I think last week or before last week. I think last week. So this is after a long story in a way. So long story. It's not without anything, by the way. But as you all know, as history tells, the Falasha form of Judaism is entirely different from that of the Western Judaism, as you all know, modern Judaism, for various reasons. One is what? Because the Ethiopian or the black Jewish was what? It is pre-Talmudic form. Do you know what pre-Talmudic means? Talmud ማለት አይሁድ ከጽዋዊ ከምርኮ በኋላ ያመጡት ኢትዮጵያውያን ያሉት ፈላሾች ግን ከምርኮ በፊት የነበረውን form of worship ነው ያዙ ማለት ነው. So Ethiopian Jews they don't know Hebrew. They don't know, the modern way of Judaism is like, but they have the archaic way of Judaism. But that shows that Ethiopians were practicing Judaism that way. So that's really good. Why Judaism or Falashas are still continued? Because after faith was introduced to Aksum, to Ethiopia, Falashas or Bet Israel were refused to accept Christianity. Okay? So they what? They flee from the house of the emperors, which is called the center of the emperor. By that time was, Aksum and its environs. So they just flee away. ከዛ ፈለሱ ማለት ነው። ከቤተ መንግስቱ ከቤተ ክርስቲያኑ አካባቢ ክርስትና ከሚሰበክበት አካባቢ ሂዱ ፍለሱ ብሎ ንጉሱ አዘዛቸው። በዛ የተነሳ ስማቸው ፈላሲ ወይም ፈላሻ ተባለ ይባላል። ይሄ ነው just what tradition says. But before that, everybody was, including our ancestors, were Jews. This is according to the Ethiopian tradition. But when we go to Christianity, Ethiopians become or converted to Christianity, but they were reluctant to accept Christianity. So they become rivals for Christians. They were strong opponents of Christian emperors, by the way. Highlanderoችን ይጠሉ ነበር. So this is the second case. The third case, okay, I must be quick. The third case was, Judaic elements in Ethiopian Christianity. Other supportive evidence on the existence of Judaism in Ethiopia are the prevalence of the Old Testament practices still practiced in Ethiopia. There are 5, I listed 5. The first one is Sabbath, የሰንበት አከባበር ቀዳሜ, circumcision, Vizrat, the Ark of the Covenant or Tabot, food regulations and the dietary laws, and the church buildings. So I give you this to discuss in assignment, by the way. So Cassis አባታችን ኃይሌ ይሄንን ለተማሪዎች ያካፍሉልኛል. So one assignment for two students. I think 10 ትመስሉኛላችሁ, or how many they are, Cassis?
We are almost 14, but like in case if there are more than 10, we will give for 3. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. So,
I will do that. Okay.
a chronological order from A to Z, right? Starting from, so the first group from S, Sabbath, the second group this, okay? Please, and due date is next week. Due date is June 10, okay? Please write and discuss about that. What is Sabbath, ማለት ነው? What is circumcision? What's Tawot in Ethiopian context? What's food relegation? What's church building? በጣም ቀላል ይሄንን ካሁን ጎርጎሮስ መጽሐፍት ከስርጓ ብለስላሴ መጽሐፍት ከሌሎች መጽሐፍት ልታገኙ ትችላላችሁ so just discuss this and maximum 1-2 pages ጽፋችሁ ተመጣላችሁ jointly thank you very much now let's proceed to the Christian faith in Ethiopia okay Christianity in Ethiopia Christianity it's known that Ethiopia is one of the countries accepted the Christian faith early. Many suggest the time was 4th century AD. The church, however, claims that it is during the 1st century by the eunuch of Queen Candace. What happened during the 4th century by Abba Salama was the church became what? Institutionalized and Christianity became the state religion. So, phase of Christianity was introduced not in 4th century, but what? In the 1st century. So this is Ethiopian church phase. How Christianity came to the land? This is a very important question. Well, as we saw from the previous discussions, monotheism or Judaism was widely practiced in the country, which laid a foundation to the news of the gospel, that's Christianity. So, as many Ethiopians used to perform pilgrimage to the Holy Land or Israel since the early times, thus, the eunuch of Queen Candace, in Ge'ez called Hitsawala Hendeke, traveled to Jerusalem for worship, as it's written in Acts chapter 8, verse 26 through 40. This is what or how happened. I think every one of us knows this. So this is the reason. So this is a very foundational information from the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 8, verse 26. The eunuch of Queen Candace. I was really happy to hear from you what's your reflection on this. Who is the Queen Candace? Who was the eunuch? And how he became a eunuch? And why he went to Jerusalem? And what happened? We all know. Thanks to St. Luke, he discussed everything, he described everything in Acts of the Apostles, chapter 8. So, mind you, Ethiopia is really the luckiest nation in the world, we can say, whose history is written, registered in the church history. As you all know, the book of Acts is what? The first book for what? Book of evidence what? For the church history, right? So the Ethiopian church is instituted there in the Acts of the Apostles. So we are really, really lucky. That's really lucky. No Europeans, no Americans, no Australians, no Canadians, no other countries are mentioned in the Bible in this incident. But the Queen of Candace, the eunuch or the Hitsu is mentioned. Thankfully, he was really kind and he came to faith. What happened to him? The Jandarabao named, the eunuch, is not mentioned by name in the Acts, by the way. Note, Ethiopian tradition gave the name, what's the name? Bakos. Other sources suggest La Casa or Inda or Indica to relate his name Indica with the Queen Candace, Hundake, okay? Hundake, Indica. So I wrote that one article on the book of Jandarabao. By the way, this Jandarabao book is really very famous. I really strongly recommend you to read this book. So our brother, Diakon Henok Haile, wrote a very wonderful book, first in its kind, on the title called the, what do you call it? The Ethiopia Jandarabao. So that's really good. So I wrote forward መግቢያውን ጻፍልን ብለው ጽፍለት እዚህም ጋር የተጠቀስኩት ነገር አለ so I mentioned this አምሳሉ 2010 page 10 is that so it says that ግብረ ሐዋርያት ምዕራፍ 8 ላይ ታሪኩ የተመዘገበው ኢትዮጵያዊ የመንግስት ባለስልጣን ጃንደረባ በመንፈስ ቅዱስ ምሪት በሐዋርያዊ ዲያቆን ፊልጶስ ጥምቀተ ክርስትና እንደተፈጸመለት ያስረዳል። መጽሐፍ ቅዱስ የዚህን ጥሙቅ የኢትዮጵያ ንግስት አዛዥና ጃንደረባ በውስጧም የሰለጠነ ብሎ ኃላፊነቱን ሲገልጽ አንዳንድ የውጭ ጸሐፊዎች ከንግስት ህንደኬ ጋር በማገናኘት ስሙን ላካሳ ኢንዳ ኢንዲካ ብለው ይጠሩታል። ኢትዮጵያውያን ምንጮች ደግሞ ስሙን ባኮስ እንደሆነ የሚናገሩ ሲሆን መንግስታዊ ኃላፊነቱን ደግሞ ጸዋለ ህንደኬ በማለት ይገልጻሉ። So just read this book. He was the treasurer. This Jandaraba was the treasurer, meaning very great power in the Ethiopian state. For the Ethiopian Queen of Candace was a devoted worshipper of the Lord. This was very important. He had the highest authority, the highest power, but at the same time he was not busy to worship God. አንዳንዶቹ ኃላፊነት መንግስት ስልጣን ምናምን ሲጣጣቸው ክርስትናን ቤተክርስቲያን ይተዋሉ። Thanks to the Jandaraba እሱ የሚያሳየን ግን እምነቱን አጽንቶ የያዘ እንደሆነ ነው። That's very important. የሱን ቅንነት አየና Saint Philip guided by the Holy Spirit, guess what? Met the eunuch sitting in his chariot reading the book of whom? The book of Isaiah. Finally, Philip baptized him, the Jandaraba, after explaining him the news of Christianity. ስለማን ያወራል እንግዲያው ነብዩ ስለራሱ ነው ስለምን አለው እንደሚታረዱ በጎች እንደዚህ ፋይናሊ ካመነ በኋላ መኑ ይከላን ተጠምቆ ነው ያለው በቃ ለመጠመቅ ያለው ጉነት ብታምን ተፈቅዶላል አለው አጠመቀው It's believed that by many historians that the eunuch after returned to Ethiopia preached the new faith and this was the news of Christianity came to the land. So read this book. So this is thanks to him. So this was faith, how faith came to Ethiopia. Supporting this argument, okay, Eusebius of Caesarea in the 4th century, he wrote that eunuch of Queen Candace brought Christianity to Ethiopia. ስለዚህ የጃንደረባው ክርስትናን ወደ ኢትዮጵያ ማስገባት የግብረ ሐዋርያት ብቻ ሳይሆን የኋላ ታሪክ ጸሐፊዎችም ሰፖርት ያደረጉት ነው። ማን ታዋቂው አውሳቢዮስ ዘቂሳሪያ የጻፈው ትልቅ ታሪክ ነው። በቃ ኖ ፋውንዴሽናል ነው። I wonder why Europeans or these Western they just reject this or they would like to deny this. It's really sad. It's hard to say. Okay, John Chrysostom Johannes Afwerk on the homily on Epiphany በጥምቀት ድርሳኑ ላይ wrote another important evidence saying that Ethiopians were also present on the day of the Pentecost in Jerusalem, but they were not mentioned in Acts because they were very few in number, right? They were very few in number. ይሄ በጣም ትልቅ አርጊውመንት ነው ባይዘው ዮሐንስ አፈወርቅ እንደገለጸው ኢትዮጵያውያን ራሳቸው በባለ 53000 ህዝቦች ከተጠመቁት መሃልና ጴጥሮስ ካስተማራቸው ውስጥ ኢትዮጵያውያን ነበሩበት የተጠቀሱት አንድ 18 20 ሰዎች የሀገር ሰዎች አሉ ከዚህ ሀገር ከዚህ የመጣን ብለው ለምሳሌ 20 ሀገር ሰዎች አሉ እነሱ እነማን መስላችሁ ላንብላችሁ በጣም ኢምፖርታንት ነው so there are about 20 nearly 20 nations are just mentioned in the Acts of the Apostles by the Acts but not all these 20 plus countries are mentioned Libyans Arabs you know the Christians the Romans እነዛ ሁሉ አሉ መጨረሻ ላይ ግን ኢትዮጵያውያኑ ያልተጠሩት ለምን ይመስላችኋል ኦኬ ፓርቴ ሜድ ኢላሚጤ በሁለቱ ወንዞች መካከል meaning ሜሶፖታሚያ ጁዲያ ቀጰዶቅያ ጳንጦንስ አይዚያ that means turkey ፍርጊያ ጵንፍልያ ግብጽ ነው ሰሜን አፍሪካ ግብጽ ቀሬና ሊቢያ or this ሰሜን አፍሪካ ሮሜ right ቀርጤስ ሜዲትራኒያን ባህር አካባቢ አረብ አይሁድ ወደ ይሁድነት የገቡ ሁሉ all these are mentioned by name why they were many but Ethiopians were misrepresented why they were very few So thanks to John Chrysostom, he said that even Ethiopians were attended the Pentecost blessing. So this is really very, very important thing. And this is also accepted by, not only accepted, also mentioned by Sir Govle Selassie and by Ephraim Isaac. Please read that. There is another tradition says that Saint Matthew came to Ethiopia and preached the gospel. Okay? Saint Matthew መጥቶ ኢትዮጵያ ላይ ሰብኳል። Rufinus, for example, wrote that Saint Matthew preached and martyred in Ethiopia. በመጽሐፉ ላይ Historia Ecclesiae volume 21 ላይ. But Ethiopian sources reject, and the book of Sinksar reject. No. Saint Matthew አልመጣም እና የሱንም ሰማዕትነት ወይም ደግሞ የሰማዕትነት ደም አላፈሰችም ኢትዮጵያ ይላል የኛ ስንክሳራችን። ኢትዮጵያውያንም ይሄንን እውነት ለመናገር ብዙ ጥሩ ነገር ነው በሐዋርያው መማር መሰበክ። ነገር ግን እንደተባለው ከሐዋርያው በፊት ጃንደረባው መጥቶ አጥምቋል። ሐዋርያው እንደመጣ የኢትዮጵያውያን ሶርሶች unfortunately ይሄንን ምንም አርገው አያደርጉ። The Christian faith was introduced to Ethiopia by the eunuch of the queen, then got many chances to be flourished as a result of commercial activities from the Greco-Roman Empire, by the way. አንድ ጊዜ እምነቱ ከገባ በኋላ በጃንደረባው ከዛ ቤተ መንግስት አካባቢና ወደ ንግዱ አካባቢ ሁሉ መስፋፋቱ አልቀረም፣ ተስፋፍቷል። በጣም ኢምፖርታንት ነገር ነው ይሄ። ለምንድን ነው እንዲስፋፋ የቻለው? because there were commercial activities from the Greco-Roman Empire, though. በቀይ ባህር ወደብ አካባቢ በአክሱም በኤርትራ አካባቢ. So in important cities of Ethiopia like in Aksum and Adulis, Christian merchants had their prayer houses and practicing their faith. It's no ክርስቲያኖቹ ጸሎት ቤት ቻፕል እንደማለት okay ሰርተው ጸሎት ቤት ነበራቸው። This is a very strong strand. Please read the book of Panorama. This is a red book, by the way. This is a red book which is named the Church of Ethiopia, a panorama history of the church. So this is a very good, so I quoted this one. But we can assume that Ethiopian life, Christian life was not widely practiced in the country, as there was no organized institution and priests were not yet assigned. እምነቱ ይግባ፣ ክርስቲያኖች ይንቀሳቀሱ፣ የክርስቲያን ነጋዴዎች ጸሎት ቤት እየሰሩ ፕራክቲስ ያደርጉት እንጂ ክርስትና አገር ለአገር ተስፋፍቶ ኦፊሻል ሪጅን ነበረ ግን አንለው። እሱን በኋላ እናያለን። It was written that there were Christian communities here and there in the country. ግልጽ ነው። here and there. The Christian faith got a golden chance to be expanded, okay, during the time of Abba Salama, which we shall see in the next session. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for that. I'm done.